Paxton Fettel came into the world under cold, clinical lights, not born from love, but from calculation. It was late 1995 or early 1996 when Alma Wade, only 16 years old and already one of the most powerful psionics, was forced to give birth. She was the central figure in a dark and hidden experiment known only to a few as Project Origin. From the very beginning, Fettel was different. The moment he opened his eyes, the researchers at Ambient Technology Corporation recognized a potential shimmering just beneath the infant's skin. His presence unsettled them. His mind pulsed with something unnatural, dangerous. Where most children took years to walk or talk, Fettel's abilities bloomed rapidly. At 6 years old, his Paragon scores eclipsed every other subject in the program. Everyone except his mother, Alma. But even Alma's raw power came at a cost. And Fettel, though not quite as overwhelming, was something far more refined. Arma Cham saw him not as a child, but as a weapon in the making, a psychic commander, built from blood and numbers. His success was so complete, so promising, that Alma was no longer needed as a breeder. They locked her away in a cryogenic tomb, deep beneath their facilities, keeping her barely alive. Contingency, nothing more. But even in her silence, Alma's influence lingered. And in Paxton, that legacy will one day awaken. As Paxton Fettel grew, so did the quiet voice in the back of his mind, a whisper that drifted through dreams and shadows, soft as silk but heavy with intent. Alma, his mother, had never truly been gone. Though her body was kept comatose deep within the Origin facility, her mind roamed freely. Untethered and hungry, she began to reach out to him, gently at first, threading her presence into his thoughts like a lullaby only he could hear. At first the contact brought comfort. She was the only one who understood him, the only one who truly could. But over time her influence deepened, shaping him, bending him. What began as whispers turned to full conversations. She fed him truth and poisoned half-truths. And Fettel, still just a child, listened. Then on his 10th birthday, the barrier between them shattered. The event would later be classified by Amachan as a synchronicity event. In an instant, Paxton's mind was merged with Alma's consciousness. Whatever was left of the boy was swept away in the tide of her rage and power. The calm prodigy was gone. What remained was a violent, unusable vessel, one that lashed out with terrifying precision. 7 members of Project Origin staff died in a matter of minutes. Not from a gun, not from any conventional weapon. Fettel broke them with his mind, with the raw force of the will he had now inherited and now fully embraced. Armor Chan responded with his usual brand of quiet desperation. The facility went into lockdown. Fettel was sedated, restrained, and sealed away. But even that wasn't enough. They turned their attention to the source of his power, his mother. Deep within the Origin facility, Alma's life support was terminated. No trial, no farewell. Just a hiss of released pressure, and then silence. She died alone, imprisoned in darkness, never knowing the face of the sun she had shaped so completely. When Fettel awoke, his fury was gone. The memories of what he had done, if they had truly belonged to him, were hazy at best. He claimed ignorance, confusion. His handlers noted that his demeanor had stabilized, as if part of him that had burned so hot had suddenly vanished. Without Alma's influence, Fettel became something resembling normal again. But the damage was already done, and deep beneath the surface of his calm exterior, the fire still smoldered. By the time Paxton Fettel turned 14, the future Arma Chan had envisioned for him began to take shape. He was transferred to Project Perseus, another of the corporation's shadow-cloaked endeavors. Unlike Origin, Perseus had a clear goal: to create a flawless army of clone soldiers, each wired to obey a single mind, one will, one commander. And Fettel was that commander. They trained him relentlessly, conditioning him to control the minds of others, not just through dominance, but with surgical precision. His psychic abilities were tested daily against simulations, decoy networks, and prototype drones. What other children his age learned algebra or read literature, Fettel learned how to puppeteer 1,000 lives with a single thought. But the science wasn't ready. Not yet. It would take another 8 years before the first generation of replica soldiers were operational. Engineered, armored, and soulless. and on the day the neural link was activated, the system hummed with an eerie synchronicity. Paxton Fettal, now 24, stood at the nexus of a silent army, and for the first time, he heard their thoughts, empty, obedient, and utterly his. Yet as the connection deepened, so did the cracks in his psyche. The dreams began, vivid, violent dreams that left him breathless and shaken. In them, he tore men apart with his hands and fed on the remains, savoring the warmth of blood and the crunch of bone. He never remembered the faces of his victims, only the hunger. It was overwhelming, all-consuming. Alarmed, Armachan's psychologists ran test after test, scanning for signs of Alma's influence. But they found nothing. No psychic residue. No anomalous energy spikes. Officially, they concluded the dreams were isolated psychotic episodes, side effects of years of mental conditioning and biofeedback loops. Unofficially, no one dares to suggest what they all feared, that perhaps the darkness of Fettal was no longer Alma's, it was his. By 2025, Paxton Fettel had become a silent weapon, watched, controlled, and deployed only when Armachan deemed it necessary. His connection to the replica forces was stable. His mind, though fractured, was manageable. At least, that's what the corporation told itself. But deep beneath the earth, something stirred. Without public knowledge, Armachan ordered the origin facility reopened. Perhaps it was curiosity, perhaps desperation. But whatever the reason, the sealed tomb of Alma Wade, Paxton's mother, and the ghost at the heart of their darkest experiments, was breached. In that moment, Alma awakened. The effect was immediate. Across the city, Paxton Fettel collapsed in his containment chamber. His vitals spiked. His brains lit up with erratic neural storms. He screamed for hours, sometimes in English, sometimes in a language that wasn't his. He called for her, and she answered. The second synchronicity event had begun. What Alma had started many years ago now reached its apex. Their minds collided again, not gently this time, not like before. This was a violent fusion of hatred, grief, and hunger. Fettel's consciousness ruptured under the pressure. The last vestiges of restraint shattered. When he rose from the floor, there was no boy, no commander, no patient left. Only the prophet of nightmare, reborn. He moves with purpose. The guards were the first to die, ripped apart by his mind before they could lift a weapon. Surveillance was lost moments after. By the time Armachan understood what was happening, it was already too late. Fettel had escaped, and behind them, the replica forces, silent, obedient, began to move. Homicidal, unstoppable, he was no longer just Alma's son, he was her vengeance. The city was quiet when the killing began. In the shadow warehouses and research labs, armored boots marched, doors shattered, bodies fell. Surveillance footage later revealed entire squads of elite soldiers moving in perfect, unnerving sync. No radios, no visible communication, just a brutal, coordinated sweep through Armachan's most sensitive installations. At the head of the silent army stood Paxton Fettel. The second event had broken him, freed him. Now fully fused with the consciousness of Alma Wade, Fettel was no longer merely a psychic commander. He was a harbinger of retribution, guided by her memories, her rage, and her pain. Alma had shown him what had been done to her, the experimentations, the isolation, the betrayal. She let him feel it all. With that revelation came clarity. They deserved to die, all of them. Scientists, executives, security forces, anyone who had ever touched Project Origin. Their names lived in Fettel's mind like an execution list. With his telepathic link fully awakened, Fettel assumed control of the entire battalion of cloned super soldiers, the replica forces. Though artificial, they moved with purpose and autonomy, operating with brutal efficiency and military discipline. They spoke in clipped battlefield jargon, like real soldiers, but they answered only to him. Not with obedience, but with devotion. He became their god. Fettel was first seen after the uprising began, nearing an eerie silence within the cell at the Perseus compound. Surveillance caught only a glimpse before everything went dark. His cell door sliding open without cause, in the shadow of a child's figure passing by. Alma Wade had come from him. From that moment on, Fettel was a phantom in the storm. To the elite government task force known as F.E.A.R, he was their mission's primary target. But the point man, The team's mysterious lead operative. Fettal was something more. An echo, a warning, a riddle wrapped in prophecy. He would appear without warning, often in flickers or visions, whispering cryptic phrases, challenging point men's understanding of reality, only to dissolve into ash before a shot could be fired. "They all deserve to die," Fettal would mutter again and again. "They made her a monster. They will pay." As the team closed in on him, the truth began to unravel of what Fettal had become, or who Alma truly was, and of the twisted family legacy that had bound the three of them together. The deeper the appointment pushed into chaos, the more of the truth unraveled, thread by thread, pulled from the bleeding seams of Project Origin. Paxton Fettel wasn't acting alone. He never was. All of it, the rebellion, the replica uprising, the brutal murders, wasn't senseless violence. It was a mission, a pilgrimage. Fettel's entire war was aimed at one destination, the hidden facility where Alma Wade's body was entombed. He wasn't just slaughtering Armachance personnel, he was tracking them, devouring them, piece by piece, memory by memory. With each body came knowledge, secrets hidden behind the blocked doors, buried projects, confidential coordinates. The cannibalism, as grotesque as it was, served as a purpose, to unlock the minds of those who had helped imprison his mother. One by one the names were crossed off the list, until only Alice Wade remained, Alma's own sister, perhaps the last living person with access to a containment site. Fettal found her in the darkness of a shattered Armachance complex. No words were exchanged, only silence. By the time Point Man arrived, she was already gone, but something else awaited him. Fettal stood near the core of the facility, his eyes lit not with rage, but with resolve. His voice was calm, even mournful. He spoke not as a villain, but as a son, a brother. It was in this moment that everything came into focus. Alma was his mother, and the Point Man was his brother. "We were born from the same nightmare," Fettal said, almost gently. "You just refused to wake up." He offered no resistance in the end. Maybe he knew how it would finish. Maybe he wanted it. The Point Man raised his weapon and fired once, point blank. Paxton Fettel fell, and with him, the replica army collapsed like puppets with severed strings. But death wasn't enough. Moments later, the Point Man detonated the Origin facility, wiping it from existence in a towering wave of fire and debris. Whatever remained of Fettel's physical form was consumed in the blast. His ashes scattered with the bones of the project that had created him.